What does a man do who has spent his entire life saving others when the law stops working? Yes, it's me, the private detective from Silent Detective Bureau. Mr. Harris sat down across from me, calmly. He looked straight at me and almost immediately said that he had killed a man. There was no drama in it, no attempt to soften the words. He said it simply and directly, like a fact he had already come to terms with. He didn't rush and he didn't stumble. He didn't blame circumstances or point to someone else's mistakes. There was only a calm, heavy clarity in the way he spoke about what had happened and why he had chosen to do it. Only his hands betrayed him more than his voice. Those same hands that had pulled people back from death for decades trembled ever so slightly. And in that tremor, you could see the price he had paid. He spent almost his entire life in operating rooms in hospitals. In that world, time isn't measured in hours or shifts. It's measured in the people you can still pull back from death. He worked as a surgeon in places where every decision meant someone's life, and hesitation was a luxury he could not afford. His family lived by the same rules. His daughter and son-in-law were surgeons too, until one bombing erased their home and them in a single moment. All that was left of his family was a little girl. When he was pulled from the front and sent to bring her home, she was 7 years old. He found her in an orphanage, small, withdrawn, as if trying to make herself invisible. She simply sat there, looking as though she had already learned how quickly the world can disappear. He brought her home and returned to work. By day, he operated. In the evenings, he taught her how to feel safe again. Not to fear the dark, not to flinch at heavy footsteps, to close her eyes calmly when the house grew quiet. For him, it was the same work he had always done: to save, to protect, and not to surrender what could still be held. And it was with that understanding of the world, that refusal to step back from pain, that he came to see me. He helped everyone he could, quietly, without questions, without asking who they were or what they could give in return. Tragedy didn't come into his life at night. It was an ordinary workday, like hundreds before. He was at the hospital, doing what he always did, saving lives. Someone approached him and quietly said his granddaughter had just been brought to the emergency room. That was all it took. Everything inside him fell into place. One look was enough to understand. The body was broken, the kind of break that comes fast. Her condition balanced on the edge where medicine ends and statistics begin. He knew that state. He'd seen it in soldiers, in workers, in people pulled from bombings or collapsed buildings. He knew what to do as a doctor, but he'd never seen it in his own family, not in someone he was supposed to protect at all costs. He did everything he could. As a surgeon, he operated, closed wounds. As a man, he stayed silent and believed it would be enough. But that was when he understood, not every wound can be stopped, and not everything that breaks can be healed. He wasn't expecting anyone. He was sitting in his office after his shift, in the kind of silence he usually needed to recover after surgery. But this time, he wasn't a doctor. He was just a man with no answers left to give. They told him what had happened to the girl, named those who had done it, told him where they lived, who their parents were, and why they were still laughing as if nothing had happened. It wasn't a confession. It was trust and a choice to tell someone what couldn't be said to anyone else. And in their silence, he understood that the law had already chosen not to see. He didn't reach for a weapon right away, and what he did wasn't born from a sudden flash of rage. The decision didn't come from a scream or from fury. It grew slowly, step by step, while he tried to do everything the way he had done his whole life. First, he followed the rules. He walked into offices where he had once been received as a respected surgeon. He spoke calmly, presented the facts, and asked not for sympathy, but for justice. But the surnames of those responsible carried more weight than any evidence. Money and connections formed a protective layer around them, a space where someone else's pain became a minor inconvenience, easier to ignore than to confront. At some point, he understood that every door he knocked on opened only for those who already had the right keys. That was when he made his decision. He killed 2 men. When he came to see me, there was no triumph in his eyes, no hysteria. Only the exhaustion of a man who had walked through war, blood, and filth, and still believed the law was meant to protect the weak. He said he would not turn himself in, not out of fear of prison, but because his granddaughter was still breathing, and as long as she was alive, he had to remain beside her. He left me everything: his address, his workplace, the details of that night. He placed the weapon on my desk and said he trusted me more than those who had already chosen to look away. He called me a man who represents the law, and added that if I decided he should be arrested, I could do it at any moment. He didn't ask for protection. He didn't look for justification. He handed me the right to decide. And perhaps that was the heaviest burden of all.